Let's get you some updates now on the current situation. CGTN's Robert Nagila is standing by from the capital, Nairobi. We're also joined by Soni Methu from the South Coast County of Kwale. She's at the Matuga Tallying Centre. Let's start with you, Robert. Indeed, plenty of speculation that's emerged over the past couple of days, and that will only be put to rest once the official results are announced. Just tell us how the tallying process is going on so far.
Absolutely, Lindsay. Well, this is perhaps the most difficult part of this electoral process, the waiting game. What's happening behind me at the moment is the verification exercise where polling agents are now verifying the results that have been coming into the tallying center with the verified results on paper. Now, for the sake of our viewers, there are two forms. These are forms from the polling stations and from the constituency. These the results on those two papers, each polling station and constituency then come here and are verified against the results that have been coming in via text into the tallying center. Now, for the polling station results, we know that more than 39,000 polling stations have already sent in their results. We believe maybe 400 or so are left, if not all of them now in. As for the ones for the constituency, a commissioner tells me that we've got about 84 of those already in out of 270. So we're probably looking at this exercise extending well into the evening, well into tomorrow. So we're looking at Friday as the day when we may, and I'm trying to be very careful here because the Electoral Commission has up until 7 days to announce the final results, but we believe that we may actually see those final results announced on Friday at some point.
All right.
Lindsay?
Well, let's turn to Soni now, who is in Kwale for us. Of course, a lot of work happening at the National Tallying Centre, but just give us an idea of what activities are still happening where you are, Soni.
Well, Lindy, as you can see behind me, some IEBC officials are also in the final stages of tallying. We understand from most polling stations in the coast region, the work has been done, and at the constituency level, the counting is still ongoing. However, most of them are confident that for the most part, the results from this region will be ready in the afternoon. However, Lindy, there have been a few issues in the coast region. We understand late last evening in Kilifi County, vote tallying had to be stopped for briefly after some IEBC officials were arrested with ballot boxes. They've given their statement to the police and were released, and the matter is still under investigation. Again, in Tana River, we did hear that 5 men who had knives attacked a tallying station there in Galole, and they actually killed one young man, and the IEBC officials had to flee for their safety briefly. But the 5 men, 2 of them were shot by policemen and they're dead, and we are hearing 3 of them were able to escape on foot. They're still being looked after by the police. But for the most part, in the coast region, it has been peaceful, and talking to people, it's starting to sound like a broken record. They're saying all they want is peace and the next leadership to do a better job. And
of course, coming back to you now, Roberts, we have just been listening to a statement from election observers acknowledging that so far they feel the process has gone smoothly. But of course, well, it seems we have lost Robert Nagila at the IEB Centre. Of course, he does say there that we last heard that election results may most likely come out on Friday, though of course IEBC does have 7 days to release those results. Soni, coming back to you, it's still a bit of a wait for communities in terms of those results, the official results. What's the mood like where you are? Has business gone back to normal as people anticipate the final and official results?
Well, it's still not business as usual. There are more shops open today than there were yesterday. There's still some tension in some regions in the coast. That would be Kwale, Mombasa town itself, Nyali, still a bit of tension there. But here in Ukunda, most shops are actually closed. And we have some women celebrating in some tallying centers dancers, we have supporters of various leaders singing already, celebrating the unofficial results. But most of them, as I mentioned earlier, they want to go back to their businesses. This is, of course, a tourist destination. We have been to a few hotels where tourists are saying they feel safe inside the hotels, but they feel a bit worried when they come out. It's really still remains a bit of a ghost town. But we are hoping by tomorrow things will be better. Just across from us, they will be issuing certificates to the local or regional leaders later today or tomorrow, and we'll be sure to bring that to you, Lily.
All right, well, thank you so much. That's Sonimetho there in Kwale. And of course, a little earlier, we were also speaking to Robert Nagila in Nairobi. Now, indeed, this election has drawn a lot of international response and reaction. In fact, U.S. Democrats Chris Coons and Cory Booker have congratulated the people of Kenya for holding elections, but urged them not to turn to violence. Former Secretary of State John Kerry is, of course, one of the international observers monitoring the election and has said he was glad to be on the ground, describing long lines of enthusiastic voters. Here's Kate Fisher from Washington with more.
Just a few days ago, former US President Barack Obama urged Kenyan leaders to reject violence and incitement, respect the will of the people, and work together no matter the outcome of the election. Well, he's been pretty quiet since he left office in January, so his decision to speak out about these elections shows the strong bond he clearly feels with the country, of course, his father's homeland. Well, his Secretary of State, John Kerry, has also been actively involved, monitoring the process on the ground as an international observer. He's been tweeting that he was glad to be in Nairobi for this key election, saying there's a lot riding on a free, fair and safe election. But though the stakes are high, he was hopeful the nation was up to the challenge. He posted pictures saying, "An inspiring day in Kenya watching democracy in action. Enthusiastic voters not fazed by long lines, all agree election must be free and fair." Well, here in Washington on Capitol Hill, two senators who sit on the Senate Foreign Relations, Africa and Global Health Policy Subcommittee, Chris Coons and Cory Booker, congratulated Kenya but warned that today Kenya stands at an important crossroads. It will either be a beacon of democracy, economic vitality and political stability, or it will falter to violence that could destabilise the country and its neighbours. They went on to urge the candidates and all Kenyans to resolve any disputes through the judiciary and to promote national unity by avoiding incitement of violence. Of course, many do fear a repeat of the violence after the disputed election 10 years ago, when more than 1,100 Kenyans died. It's unclear how much influence these words of these high-profile American politicians will actually have, but it's clear that there is a lot of interest here in Washington in what happens in Kenya in the coming days. Kate Fisher, CGTN, Washington.
Well, let's bring you some analysis now on what's happening in the elections of Kenya. We're joined by political and governance analyst Gabriel Muthuma in studio with us. Gabriel, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Now, of course, there is at this point a lot of anticipation on the outcome of this presidential vote, well, and particularly the presidential section of it. And indeed, the Electoral Commission has 7 days to release the results, but people are seemingly rather impatient. Has this been made clear to Kenyans ahead of the vote that the IEBC does have 7 days before releasing results?
Well, very good question. And, actually, I've been, across the leaders, and half of them, actually majority of them, including the politicians who are running for elective office, most of them don't know that you have 7 days. So actually, I think that has translated all the way down to the common mwananchi or the common Kenyan, who, immediately you vote, they want, the elections, the results released. And I think that's where the problem is. Just the other day, you saw on Monday when, actually on Tuesday, when the results started trickling in and there was a delay of 2 hours, people started actually, throwing a fuss. So we have an issue with controlling our anxiety.
And indeed, I suppose it does point to question at a need for better civic education, voter education. Others might also say the fact that there's quite a large number of spoilt or rejected votes is another issue that the IEBC needs to address. It does.
And when the IEBC that took us from the 2013, were actually hounded out of office, many people are concerned. Will we have, you know, the voter education continue? Because there was an issue actually from 2013 to even 2017. It just gives you a clearance that they've not done a good job when you talk about civic education to the voter. Albeit the fact that in 2013 things were, you know, things were haphazard, but at this point people were able to know. And then the polling station were actually clusterized. They were brought into, you know, into small notions of 700 voters. So when you look at the at what you call the spoiled votes or the rejected votes, I actually give them a hand, because you're looking at about 10 spoiled votes per polling station. You're looking at 40,000 polling stations, and you're looking at a number of rejected votes of about 400,000. So give it, you know, about 10 votes per polling station. So that's a good civic education. People are getting landed. But I think where the problem is coming in is what you call the fake news. Actually, many political parties has been argued that they had sent their people who are actually confusing the electorate. They would tell you, you know, if you want this candidate, sign here. If you don't want this, then put a next. That's a spoiled ballot. But most people don't know. So there was an element of last minute cross-referencing with between the commission, the IEBC commission, and the common mwananchi, which didn't happen.
And over the next few days, as we, you know, the sort of final stretch of waiting for the final results, where do you see most of the anxiety or impatience maybe that it would emerge? Is that around the presidential votes, or with the devolved system? Will that be more at county level?
You see, the crazy thing again is that majority of Kenyans have not understood the power of devolution. Half of them still look up for the national government, and also that's a disservice when you do that. Majority of them don't know that healthcare has been devolved, education is devolved, and so is agriculture. So when you still have issues of striking teachers, they still look up to the national government. And that's, you know, that actually creates a scenario whereby the governor is not questioned, and by so doing they end up, you know, misappropriating funds. So I think there's still a lot of learning curve that the country has to do to ensure that the mwananchi mashinani is currently understanding that they need to get majority of their answers from the local government, which is the governors and the MCS. Once they start getting this narrative, I can guarantee you're going to see a lot of change, and very little answers will be trickling from the national government.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much, Gabriel Muthuma, here in studio with us on the Kenyan elections.